You are a bad boy. They checked her laptop, then sat in the living room with coffee. It's time to touch on the topic. I know you want more from me, Roger, and you think I'm teasing you. So, it's time to lay the cards on the table. You want sex with me? Yes. She took his coffee and placed it on the low table next to her stuffed animal. Then she placed one of his hands between her thighs. She knew she was warm and wet. He squeezed there. Feel how you turn me on, Roger. I want everything you want. Maybe we can make a deal. What deal? Susan removed his hand and told him everything. It took a while, and she poured it all out, describing what a terrible bully husband she was. Roger nodded and seemed shocked by her vile proposal. She worked on his manhood and brought him to the finish line, thereby sealing the deal. When he left, she took Elvis. Not a word from you. When Greg returned home, Susan was sitting at the computer. Can I ask you something? He asked. Certainly. Why was there a Netflix t-shirt in the laundry basket? When I took my laptop to be repaired, one of the guys spilled coffee on my Chanel. I had to take it to the dry cleaner and Netflix lent me one of theirs. It's clear. How long have you been wearing crotchless tights? Susan stopped and turned to face him. What were you doing, Greg? Sniffing all the dirty laundry? Do you prefer not to answer? I'll answer if you want. But why are you checking? You first. Since the May holidays. What? I've been wearing crotchless tights since May. When we went for fertility tests, they diagnosed a mild form of thrush and prescribed a uterine ring and canestin. We had to abstain from sex for a week. Do you remember? Yes. After it was all over, I started wearing crotchless tights. They are more hygienic. If you had looked under my skirt when I proposed, you would have seen this. Or would you prefer that I go for an evening stroll in stockings? I have some clues. Now answer me. You don't need to be so aggressive. I saw a t-shirt in the laundry basket and got curious. And at the same time, I noticed a plastic bag from Pantyhose. I didn't know you wore them all summer? Susan thought, no, you don't notice my underwear. You don't notice anything at all. Greg thought that answer was good, but you lied about going to see Dee. On Sunday morning, they calmed down and behaved politely. Greg wondered if he had been a little rough with Susan. He was always polite, but he was more used to giving instructions. He decided to put her mysterious evening on the back burner. Okay, she came out braless and in a bad mood, but he didn't want to get caught with another plausible explanation. Do you know that we are having lunch at the golf club? Yes, I'll be ready by 12. Do you mind if I arrive an hour earlier? I bought a new long starting putter and would like to practice on the course. No problem. I need to do some laundry. Susan was at the sink in the utility room. After the infection, she washed and rinsed all her linen thoroughly by hand. On the way to the garage, Greg stopped behind her and patted her ear. Friends again? Certainly. She turned and kissed him. But I won't hug you, my hands are wet. Did you take everything? Certainly. He closed the door and Susan heard the main garage doors slam open as he started his Land Rover. Her Mercedes was already in the driveway and she waited until the door clattered down before picking up her cell phone. Greg hit his forehead with his palm. He left his new long putter right outside the front door. And this after she asked if he took everything. He quietly slipped back and took the bag. Then he listened. Have you thought, Roger? That's a lot of money, not to mention what nasty things you will do to me. Yes, I tried your thing. It is fantastic. The first scan of our bedroom found everything electronic, including the light switches. Everything is yellow. The second time it flashed red was when it detected that my cell phone was charging. No, there is no need to check other rooms. I prefer sex on a big bed. Well, perhaps on the headboard. You said that you want to see everything. There was a pause while Roger spoke. Are you serious? Yes, but you must bring condoms with you. We'll do it next time he's away. You can have it all. I'll put all the appliances away in the bedroom, and no one except Elvis will be watching us. In the meantime, we still need a plan to get rid of Greg. He quietly slipped out of the car and let the Land Rover roll down the road before starting the engine. When he got to the field, he couldn't concentrate and went to the bar. Alcohol didn't help, so he stuck to pineapple juice. It was not difficult to guess that her lover, Roger, worked at Netflix. But getting rid of him sounds ominous. Did she mean get him out of the way so she could have sex? Or did she want to kill him? Their sex life had always been good, if a bit inconsistent, and now they were trying to have a baby. At least Susan insisted on using a condom with this Roger guy, although it didn't matter now. Enough with the promises of sex and sinister plots. He was furious. Instead of ending it, he wanted to catch her in the act and divorce her. The fact that some members of his family hinted at this when he married the barmaid made him even more angry. Now he'll have to live with the awkwardness of their "I told you so" looks. This bitch must suffer. And Roger Rabbit will get his share too. The wives of other men are out of reach. Can I join you, old man? What kind of poison should you take? Marcus, welcome. Just a pineapple, please. I'm driving. Marcus returned with the drinks. I drink brandy myself. Of course, Greg replied. All doctors are alcoholics. That's true, he admitted. And all the nurses are smokers. Are you without your better half today? She will come soon. You should join us for lunch. But first I'd like to clear my head. Ha! If given the chance, I wouldn't choose these. When God gave out brains, I think he confused brains with drains, sewers. No thanks, they stink, I said. Marcus had already told this joke, but he still burst out laughing. When the laughter died down, Greg made his statement. You're aware of all this nonsense about IT, aren't you? Susan, I'm going to London on Tuesday, Greg said, and I'll stay the night. Fine. I'll invite Dee. Good idea. It's Tuesday. I have already checked into the hotel room. I'll have an early night. I'm meeting with the lawyers tomorrow morning. Okay, said Susan. It's only going to be one night, so you better have some fun tonight. Entertainment? I thought you were inviting Dee? Oh yeah, she'll be here soon. Greg sipped his single malt cocktail and wondered what she was really doing. Probably already lying on their bed, having sex. Checking their bedroom for recording devices was tricky, but he liked the idea of photographing her. Not that it would excite him, but rather as a safety net in case Plan A didn't work out. Susan checked her caller ID as soon as they hung up. Yes, the call was from the Lancaster Gate Hotel. She called them. Tomorrow I have a meeting with Mr. Clifford from Southport. Please, can you confirm that it arrived safely? Yes, he registered. Can I connect you with him? No need, I'll meet him in the morning. She then called Dee to clear up their stories. Roger was due to arrive soon. Susan went into the bedroom and turned on the appliance. She found all the usual things, but nothing unusual. She checked the curtains were closed, then went to the bathroom and put on lipstick. I studied myself in the mirror. Irresistible. He's infatuated and her makeup will soon be ruined. But it's better to show yourself in all your glory. With Greg dead, she'll slowly undo everything. Or, if he's a good lover, maybe he'll keep it to himself. What did the Americans call it? Sex buddy. But she was going to enjoy today, whether Roger followed through with her plan or not. Soon, they were in her bedroom. Susan stood in front of him, wearing only a thong, which he would gladly remove himself. Here are my girls again, she said, and they like the way you love. Roger was very happy to oblige. He undressed while playing with them and casually tossed a pack of condoms onto the bed. I hope you brought a lot. We have plenty of time. When he undressed, she sat on the bed and began to please his manhood. A minute, and he was hard as a rock. Very good, she said, leaning back to admire it. Look here, I learned this trick when I worked as a bartender. She opened the condom and put it in her mouth. Then, with her lips, she pulled it onto him. Aren't you afraid that you might hurt him? He asked. No, lots of practice. Are you doing this for your husband? It's not good to mention him. Susan, of course, didn't do this for her husband. It was assumed that they were trying to have a baby. And now that she knew she was infertile, there was no need to use it with anyone. But there was no reason to discuss this with Roger either. And if she's trying so hard to keep everything a secret, It would be stupid to catch a sexually transmitted infection at the last moment. Fuck me now. I'm all burning with desire. Just have fun the first time. When you are ready again, you can satisfy me too. He didn't need to be told twice. Susan loved the way he held her face in his hands and kissed her. It was strangely romantic. Despite her instructions, he was gentle and took his time. She hugged him and pulled him towards her. He picked up speed, and soon the smell of his sweat was overcome by the smell of his own deodorant. She liked it. Her legs wrapped around his waist without any conscious effort on her part. She grabbed his thighs fiercely and reached for his buttocks. Roger also crawled under her buttocks and inserted a finger into her ass. Then he began to fuck her harder, feeling the sperm rising from his balls. Lifting his face away from hers and leaning back, he reached the finish line and grunted. Susan was surprised to find that she too had climaxed. With Greg, it took much longer. She wondered for a moment whether it was because of Roger himself or because of the depravity of someone else. She closed her eyes tightly and moaned loudly. It was great! She was delighted. What a stallion! Netflix is proud that the client is always satisfied. Susan smiled at him as they both came down from their high. This was a completely different Roger now, confident, and even joked. Perhaps he is someone worth protecting. Go to the bathroom and get rid of the condom. Make sure it's washed off. Then come and hug me. He returned and looked at the shelf on the wall. I have already seen this plush toy. She looks like Elvis. This is him. Roger climbed onto the bed and they snuggled close to each other. I'm very slutty, she explained. Me too. I want to try everything. I have the impression that you might like what I have to offer. God, yes. Susan raised herself up on one elbow. But you know that I need your help in killing my husband. And when he's gone, I'll be rich enough to start your own business. Yes, you did. Consider me interested. Well, you said you might agree, but you're worried about the risk, so I'll tell you my plan. If you reject him, there will be no more sex. Just go away. But if you agree, you can stay all night and get enough money to get started. Fine. First of all, can you get some Rohypnol or something like that? No problem. Great. This is the plan. We have a cottage in the Lake District, near Devoke Water. The flight to Liverpool, Southport's nearest airport, landed late on Wednesday afternoon. It was short, but restless. The wind ruffled Greg's coat as he walked to the car. His mobile phone rang. It was Jack Dacre. There was a strong storm here last night. He tore off your moorings. He was pinned to the shore, and I tied him to one of your mooring posts. Oh, thank you, Jack. Do you think it can be fixed? Certainly, but you'll need to replace one mooring post. What's left of it is rotten, and a dozen meters of strong rope wouldn't hurt. Fine, I'll come when the weather improves. Is everything else still worth it? Yes. The cabin is fine, as is your little boathouse. There are a lot of logs under the tarp, and I put a few more stones along the edge to keep the wind from getting inside. Before leaving, Greg called Dee. Yes, she was at his house last night, keeping Susan company. No, she was not driving, but arrived home by taxi around 11. Everything was very believable until she overacted. And last Friday, when you called me, worried about her? Yes. Well, I forgot to mention. But that evening, she was also with me. I didn't say anything at the time because you invited me to dinner and I love Mrs. Fryer's cooking. You haven't lived up to expectations yet. Sorry, Dee, I'll do it soon. So the night he left, Susan went to Dee's. But Greg knew, if she was there, why didn't Dee say so then? And why did I mention this now? Unless she was asked to do so. I'm home, Susan. Do you miss me? He always called her by name. Never. Neither baby, nor beloved, nor sweetheart. Now this was also starting to irritate her, and he was late. I missed you, but while you're away, Elvis always looks after me. They hugged. Well, thank him for me, but now his duties are completed. Necessarily. What do I feel? Mrs. Fryer left a Lancashire roast in the oven. It will be ready in about 20 minutes. They ate at the dinner table. Susan would have preferred a tray in front of the TV. She wrinkled her nose as Greg sliced a wedge of Lancashire cheese. What is this obsession with eating cheese with everything? The hot pot was just stewed lamb with sliced potatoes on top. Nothing more than a cottage cheese pie. Who would eat cheese with this? I need to go to the hut. Jack said we almost lost our mooring. Can it be repaired? That's the first thing I asked. Yes, you can. And the forecast calls for a break in bad weather over the weekend. Tomorrow I'll go to my usual supplier and buy 2 new mooring posts and a couple of hoses. Sleeves? Metal sleeves. Well, you know, a hole is dug. A sleeve is inserted, it is filled with sand, and a mooring post is inserted. A shovel of cement and you're done. It's too wet to drive the stake straight into the ground. I'll do both. Understood. Do you need help? I thought you said you didn't want to go this time. But it sounds fun. Sign me up. Then this weekend. We'll set off on Friday after breakfast and do everything in daylight. By the way, have you seen my mobile phone? Ask it, Susan. I could swear I left it on the coffee table. I think I saw him by the bed, doing exercises. About. I'm going to the club for a couple of hours. Would you like to join me? Not this time. I need to wash something by hand. Fine. Roger, everything must be done this weekend. Then you will have to take sick leave. You need time off for Friday and Saturday. Don't worry, you won't be working there for long. Meet me tomorrow in Costa at lunchtime. Susan returned with the phone downstairs. The plan was coming together. On Thursday after work, Roger picked up the rental car. He would love it if his friends saw him driving around in a Toyota Land Cruiser, but he had to keep it a secret. It's a shame he had to pick her up on Saturday night. But if Susan helps with the money, he might soon be able to afford his own car. Early on Friday morning, Roger drove onto the M6 highway. After leaving the highway, the GPS led him to a small parking lot from which he could drive up to the barn. He didn't need to go off-road, but such a car would look less noticeable in these places. He took off his shoes and put on his new hiking boots. Susan bought them for him, and they were the most expensive pair he had ever owned. They were comfortable, but he still put on an extra pair of socks. Then, in full wet weather gear and with a backpack, he set off for Devoke Water. By the time he reached the hut, he was starving. The hut is nestled on the shore in a small bay between 2 bays. Being the only building on the south side, it was hard to miss, but the view of the pier was still calming. He looked around. There was not a single tree visible around the lake, but, oddly enough, to the left of it, there was a small island covered with trees. He wondered why they grew in the center and nowhere else. To his right, on the far bank, stood an old stone boathouse, looking abandoned and eerie. He made himself as comfortable as possible behind a rock ledge. It wasn't raining, but the grass was still wet. In fact, she was wet underfoot the entire hike. It was almost time for lunch, and Roger opened the flask of soup and sat down. Okay, he could endure it for a few hours. Tonight he will sleep in a warm cabin with the beautiful Suzanne. He had barely started his first sandwich when he heard them approach. God, he was only an hour ahead of them. They crossed the last small beck, both with backpacks larger than his. They were carrying materials to repair the pier. These sleeves are heavier than I thought, Greg said. It's good that you went too. Will we do everything now or in the morning? I forgot. First, let's do our usual procedure in the hut. And then we'll do it today, while there's still daylight. Susan didn't like routine, but this one made sense. She entered the house and Greg started the generator. Then he spent a long time lighting the wood-burning stove, using the driest logs from the stack by the stone fireplace. Susan walked around the house and opened all the windows to allow air exchange and opened all the vents. Then she opened a bottle of red wine and poured it into a decanter. It was one of the bottles Greg had brought here on their last visit. Then she went back, closed the windows and vents, and the hut warmed up. She took out their special glasses. Those were released after the release of the Lord of the Rings movie. On her glass was a picture of Legolas, her beloved. On his, of course, Aragorn. When will we drink wine? She asked. As soon as we finish the pier. She looked at the Rohypnol tablet, but decided to put it in his glass at the last moment. Then she went and made the bed. 3 hours later, the pillars were in place. It's too cold to watch the sunset outside. Let's get into the warmth. In the morning, we will christen the pier and go on a boat ride for an hour. They sat comfortably on the old sofa. I'll go pour some wine, Susan said, and went to the kitchen, returning with glasses. Let's have a drink with toast, Greg suggested. Get up. They stood in front of the fireplace. To the next Clifford, he announced. I have a feeling he or she might be conceived tonight. Susan smiled and they clinked their glasses. I have an idea, Greg said excitedly. Take a pen. She went to the old sideboard and found one. Greg hurried to the kitchen and returned with a cork and a bottle of wine. They sat back down on the couch and Greg wrote 10/17/2014 on the cork, then GC, and handed it to Susan. Now put a plus sign under my initials and add yours. This will be a reminder of this visit to our house. Our last visit, she thought. It was still light when Roger saw the signal. He knew which window was the bedroom. The curtains were closed, the lights turned on and off 3 times. He stood up and headed towards the hut. Around 6 in the evening, the small rowing boat reached the middle of the lake. There the oars were raised and the boat rocked alarmingly when something heavy splashed into the icy water of Devoke, always cold at any time of the year. Something heavy slowly sank to the bottom of the lake to a depth of 14 meters. The only witnesses were a few large brown trout, but they weren't interested, at least for now. At 9:05 on Sunday morning, the telephone rang in a house in Southport. Hello? Hello? Is this the Southport Hire Service? May I speak to Mrs. Clifford? Sorry, she's not here. Oh, don't you know when she'll be back? No idea. Hello, Sergeant. Could you come down to the reception area? Some people want to report a missing person. Okay, send them to interrogation room number 2. Would you like tea or coffee? No, thanks. I've seen shows on TV. Police snacks are always terrible. Right. Let's start with your name and who is missing. My name is Greg Clifford. I live in 8 Blackpool Road, Southport. My wife Susan is missing. When was the last time you saw her? On Friday the 17th. I left early to go to our house in the lakes and she stayed at home. Detective Sergeant Fleming later studied his notes. Let me just retell the events in chronological order. I understand that on Thursday, the 9th, your wife said that she would visit her friend Dee Watson the following evening. But on Friday night, she announced that she is, in fact, dating a younger lover, and you'll have to learn to live with it. She then left dressed like a fallen woman. To use your own phrase, can you tell me what she was wearing? A transparent blouse without a bra and a short skirt. She had no panties under her skirt, just crotchless pantyhose. Are you sure? Yes. She lifted her skirt and showed it to me, and she said that before she got home, Roger would have it. And what was your reaction to this? I didn't want to lose her. I decided to think about it and see if it would get out of her system. I thought this might be the last fling before we have kids. You then went to London on the night of the 14th. Yes. Before leaving, I told Susan that she had until the weekend to end her affair or get a divorce. On Thursday, I asked if she wanted to go to the cabin with me the next day. She loves the privacy of Devoke water, and I thought a trip might fix that. She said she'll think about it. But you didn't go? No. You say that you went to the lake alone and repaired the pier. Right. But they didn't stay for the weekend, but returned that same evening. Why? I thought she might take advantage of my absence to have sex with this Roger, but then he became worried that she might run away with him and thought that they might steal things or empty bank accounts. And you say that everything was in order in the house, but your wife was not there? Why didn't they immediately report her missing? Because he gave her until the end of the weekend. She didn't seem to take anything of value, so I kept my word. Yesterday, Sunday, was her last chance to return if she had gone somewhere for the last dirty weekend. And the phone call on Sunday? A car rental company wanted to talk to her. Now that I think about it, it's really strange. Her Mercedes is in the garage, so I can't imagine why she needed to take another car. Sorry, Mr. Clifford, but we need to check your house. Can we go there right now? Sure. No problem. Like I said, I've seen every TV show, so I understand that I, the person of interest, am the last person to see her. Alive, he thought. Thanks for understanding. I'll go and find a female colleague. Could you go into the bedroom for a moment, Mr. Clifford? Called Constable Gorton. How can I help? Sergeant Fleming mentioned a lilac blouse, but I don't see it. I checked your utility room. There are no clothes there, neither washed nor soiled, nor in the laundry basket. God, I didn't even think about it. Greg spent time going through his clothing drawers and wardrobe. Then he sat down on the bed, resting his head in his hands. This will sound strange, but usually I don't pay much attention to what my wife wears. Sorry. Do not need to apologize. Most men don't. Sergeant Fleming joined them. She wore the same outfit she was wearing when she had sex with him. Lilac blouse and short skirt. And when she lifted her skirt, I remembered something else she said. Continue. She said, I have 18 pairs of panties, Greg, but I don't wear any with Roger. I just checked. All 18 are here. The only thing missing is her crotchless tights. But strangely enough, her hiking gear and boots were also missing. Quite a comprehensive description, Sergeant, she said. And one more thing, Greg said, pulling out a Netflix t-shirt from another drawer. Roger probably works around here somewhere. Before leaving, the police took down the location of the shack in detail, and Greg gave them the key. He himself sat in the living room and recalled recent events. Despite Susan's precautions with the thing, Greg's idea paid off. He placed Elvis in the bathroom, and after she looked through the bedroom, he returned him to his place. Thus, Greg witnessed sex. Susan's condom trick was the most impressive, but his trick of slipping a camera and tape recorder into Elvis was inspiring. He heard all the details of the murder plan. From that moment on, everything was simple. The clink of glasses, running to the kitchen for a traffic jam, draining the undrinked wine into the sink and pouring yourself a new one, sprinkling your Rohypnol while Susan signs the plug. As soon as she lost consciousness, he stripped her naked and laid her on the bed with her ass up. Then he poured more wine with 2 pills and placed it on the coffee table, next to the note. First drink it all, Roger, and then take off all your clothes. Warm up your hands in front of the fireplace and come on. Fuck me good. Greg signaled from the bedroom and then waited in the kitchen. Roger drank some wine, which only began to take effect when he was finally a bull to take off his boots. He dowsed off by the fireplace, trying to remove his trousers from the wet weather. Greg then dressed the lovers in camping gear and carried them into the boat. It was already dark when they set off on their journey across the lake. Despite the icy water, swimming back into the water was exciting. Next, dry clothes, thoroughly washed glasses, a locked hut, and return home. He could guess what would happen next. A rental car in the name of Susan is parked by the lake. The boat should drift back to the shore, towards the exit of the lake. Recent activities and slutty clothing will be revealed in the hut. Either the police will drag them to the lake, or Susan and Roger will float to the surface of their own free will. Of course, suspicions will arise. Why did the lovers go there so soon after him? Argument? Suicide pact? Anyway, job done. It remains to take care of the last detail. Greg went into the bedroom and took the teddy bear. In the backyard, there was a metal barrel for burning garbage. He checked to see if there was dry paper and leaves in it, and placed a can of gasoline next to it. He reached under his high collar and picked up a piece of fur. Thanks again, Marcus. He took out a small recording device. After all, he won't need a camera. No divorce needed. He turned it and looked into the beer's ease. Who will notice the absence of one eye? Especially with a tiny camera replacing it. She brought you from the bathroom. Your job was to keep an eye on her. Greg laughed, threw it into a barrel and doused it with gasoline, then threw a lit match. When the flames died down, he returned to the house. He sat down on the sofa with a large glass of Aberlour and said out loud, "Elvis has left the building." Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.